Our first conversation is about what cities can do to improve the lives of the people who live there. Some cities are getting really smart. Peter made reference to this. Your parking meter will send you a text when your time runs out. You can take a picture of your pothole on your iPhone and report it to a city service agency. Spot an abandoned vehicle or a dead animal in the middle of the road, there's an app for that. Dallas, Texas, we were hearing about the mayor there, is one of the places taking advantage of these two technologies, and we're delighted that city's mayor, Mayor Mike Rawlings, is here to talk about it. We're also joined by the Managing Director for Global Business Development for the Smart and Connected Communities Initiative at Cisco, Arvind Satyam. And here to lead the conversation is my colleague, the wonderful Atlantic Washington Editor-at-Large, Steve Clemons.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
away,
Margaret. Good to see all of you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Arvind, it's awesome. Arvind's big into sports. We were just talking about something having to do with the Warriors, and I said, who are the Warriors?
Yeah,
and I said,
well,
you know, I just don't really do well with sports things. I went to high school in Japan, and I was sort of blind growing up and did obstacle courses and couldn't jump. So I'm not really a sports guy, but congratulations on the Warriors.
Thank you.
I do follow
I'm
sumo.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you'd be good in sumo.
But Mayor,
good in a sumo
your
bout.
team won in 2011,
I know,
right?
it was.
How many
Congratulations.
How many of
Thank
you
you.
have ever been to Burning Man? Anyone? So I really want to go. I really want to go to Burning Man. My friend, and if I were going to be a mayor of a city, I would want to be mayor of Burning Man. I mean, and so when I want to sort of compare Burning Man and Dallas for a minute, but I want to start with you, Arvind.
I want to catch. I want to catch on Netflix.
That's a good idea. So how can Cisco and the Internet of Everything and data work with a just-in-time city as well as a city like Dallas, Texas, which is an iconic, been with us forever city? What is a high-speed, turbo-connected, just-in-time world? Can you deliver for me if I were to be mayor of Burning Man?
Sure. I mean, we haven't done Burning Man yet, but I think I'm going to book my ticket.
You are in charge of business development.
Absolutely. It's right up, right? I think the thing with Burning Man is the city gets created, and I think after a week it just disappears, right? But I look at things like Burning Man akin to what happens with major events. So if you look at the Olympics, you look at the World Cup, essentially you have a huge influx of people that are coming in, and it's no different. You've got to provide a number of municipal services. You've got to deal with security. You've got a number of monetization models that are being created, not just by the city, but also the retailers and everybody else that's around them. But that's a just-in-time city or a just-in-time event. We've been working with a lot of cities that are established. Most of the world is not Burning Man, thankfully, but it's cities like San Francisco and London and other cities. And I think the key for us is to actually work with the legacy infrastructure that's already in place, right?
Well, let's forget about San Francisco for a minute and let's talk about Dallas. So you're mayor of Dallas, Texas, and what made me think about this just-in-time notion is you were also the former CEO of Pizza Hut. And that is a just-in-time business, just-in-time dough, just-in-time pepperoni, just-in-time delivery. What did that background as a chief executive officer do for you other than create lots of frustration when you moved into the lethargy and slowness of running a city?
Well, that was first and foremost. You know, one of the things that I realize in government is unless there's a revolution, there's no reason to change fundamentally. You know, the structures and the silos and the structure. There's not a motivation. You can't go bankrupt, or you can't, not get a bonus. People might not get elected, but that's usually
and congratulations, I should say the mayor is being inaugurated in his second term on Monday.
Thank you.
So he just...
Thank you. Thank you. But you hit the nail on the head. To me, it's the time to market, and that's where technology is very important. Speed to market is everything. Execution is everything. And policies are something, but it's how fast you can make that happen for citizens today. And that ethos kind of traveled with me as I've done this job.
Do you consider yourself a data mayor?
I wish I had more data to be a data mayor. You have a lot of facts out there, but I don't think we have as much information as we want. And that's one of the things that technology can do. I think it can do four things, and one of them is help you make a better decision. But it's not only about organizing the data and doing big analytics. It's about making the decisions about what should be on your data dashboard.
Right.
And that's
what is
the
on
art.
your data dashboard? Is it on your iPhone?
I wish I had one, and I
You know
really.
who has one? Eric Garcetti. So when you talk to Mayor Garcetti, I started, so he has an iPhone with
Right.
the whole data thing on it. Did you guys do that?
No,
No?
not there,
Okay.
but we have worked with a
So
number
we
of other
were
mayors.
just talking
Yeah.
about how crappy the whole mayor's network is in trading best and promising practices, right? So there's something I've just sort of shared with you. Go steal Garcetti's
I'll steal it
platform.
tonight.
But what is on your dashboard?
You know, first of all, crime, okay? The citizens, first and foremost, want to be safe. You want to know where the hot spots are and what is going on. Second, to me, is sales tax revenue. You know, is it up or down? I'm a retailer by nature, same store sales, how are we doing this year versus last year? That's a wonderful metric to be able to see what's going on. Property values are important. That's a little slower data that comes in. And importantly to me is really breaking it down by neighborhoods. And we've got in southern Dallas, which is this massive thing. You can fit the city of Atlanta inside of southern Dallas. And, you know, we've got neighborhoods, and I've got about 10 metrics along with about education, about how much being invested in homes, those sort of things that are very important.
So when you talk about homes, and Dallas was one of the places that was really hit by the 08-09 financial crisis, and I know J.P. Morgan has been out there kind of looking at blight in cities. I'm just really interested if you'd imagine a crystal ball, and Arvind, both of you comment on this. If you were to look into the future and say 5, 10, 15 years from now, what are the levers you really need to move to create real transformation in cities, to deal with blight in cities, to deal with the jobs deficits in cities, which I know you care a lot about? And does data move you there, or is that an illusion?
No, it's key. Why don't you go ahead, but I'll tell you Dallas' story in a second. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that's going to address this is beyond data, just connectivity. Now you've got the ability, whether you're in Dallas, whether you're in Detroit, now you've got the ability to actually create jobs remotely, right? An example of this is we're working in Korea where English education is one of the key things for students, and we see Midwestern teachers that are remotely delivering English education. Right, that's one example of just education. Healthcare can be done remotely, but we're also seeing this emergence of an industry called urban services. So whether it be parking or traffic management or other elements of managing a city, you can actually take some of that and do it more efficiently in other cities. So cities don't necessarily have to do the business of running a city just in that city. If they create a domain expertise, for instance, Dallas might invest in smart parking and build business models around that. They can actually start exporting that capability. So I think these are just some examples of how you can actually create more jobs without the geographical constraints, which you can enable through technology.
You know, Dallas has done, ironically, fabulous over the last decade. We were the last to go into the recession, the first to come out. Dallas-Fort Worth, people don't know, is the 4th largest SMSA in the country. New York, LA, Chicagoland, and Dallas-Fort Worth.
SMSA?
Market. It's
it's
a market metric. And so we're the #1 job creator in the nation this last year. Pretty high-paying jobs. I think we got.
But you've been saying you're seeing, because you're generating about 50,000 of these mid-level jobs a year. But you're worried about a deficit.
That's one of our issues. So we're getting Toyota just moved their national headquarters here. We've got international tech companies. We've got 48,000 unfilled jobs.
Right.
Okay, and it's not because we don't have the training. So that's the second issue to me, is education and training for those jobs in the right way.
And you made an interesting point, I read about this, that they're not 4-year degree jobs. They're greater than high school. They're less than 4 years. So you're in that community college track that so many people are talking about.
Not only community college, but also, community colleges can do job training that's different. We've got a great organization called Workforce Solutions that's in charge of making that happen, but you have to leverage the community colleges. So education is critical part of that. That's what worries me at night. And the third thing is housing, okay? Good middle-class housing. We're a barbell economy. We've got 16 billionaires in our city, okay? But we're the #1 city with the highest population of kids in poverty because so many families are moving. And so the only way out of that is getting good housing and education, and that's how technology's got to play into this thing.
And Steve, I also look at the types of jobs, right? So data opens up a lot more possibilities, and it's not just data itself, it's how you analyze the data, right? So one of the trends that we're seeing as the world gets a lot more connected is jobs like data scientists. And I read something the other day, even ones that are visionaries or change agents, because it's not just about getting access to the data on the iPhone as a mayor, but how do you instrument the change through the agencies and how you're running the city agencies themselves. So there's going to be a whole host of new jobs that are created.
In the Bay Area in the 1990s, I don't know if he's still around, many of you may know Arno Penzias, who made a statement, said the internet was going to make smart people smarter and dumb people dumber. Is the same thing apply to cities, that smart cities that take advantage of things can be smart cities, but even interconnectedness and technology can also lead to a bunch of dumb cities? When we talk about smart cities, we have to talk about dumb cities. So who are some of the dumb cities that you've run across, Mike?
I'm going to argue with you for a second.
I'm glad you asked him and not me.
I'm going to argue with you. I don't think there are dumb and smart cities. I think there are dumb and smart people that live in cities, okay? And this sense that somehow a city, just the way we verbalize it, we dehumanize it.
Right.
And when we start to humanize it, you understand the role that technology plays. It's not about gadgets. It's about solving problems that human beings have. And I think we're at the front end of this.
Well, let me frame it in a different way for you and tell me what your experience is in Dallas. So I've interviewed Mike Bloomberg, Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, and Garcetti in Los Angeles. And I would call all three of them data mayors, and Mike a former data mayor. They're obsessed with data. Rahm Emanuel studied how UPS trucks were turning in the city and applied that truck turning radius to trash trucks and saved $18 million to help some schools. Those kinds of things. But they said the biggest problem is that the city mandarins, if you will, the people that run the city, that have been running things for a long time, haven't come out of this kind of Palo Alto culture over here, where they were basically, pruned and sculpted in data along the way. So there's a gap between the experience that a lot of cities have now and what you need to bring in.
No question.
How's that in Dallas?
Oh, it's very true in Dallas. And it's I just came from a business background.
Right.
And so my whole life has been data, and you couldn't accomplish anything. This notion that you measure what you care about, and you care about what you measure, I think is so critical, and it's not part of the culture. I think people that historically have been in the public sector are about solving immediate impulses. Immediate problems. Oh my goodness, the mayor's upset about this, we better fix that, okay? Or, constituents are rioting in the east side of town because of potholes. We've got to go fix the potholes, as opposed to systemically understanding where it is. And that's why I think we're at the very front end of cities becoming more understanding how in-depth in how to use data.
The other thing I observe is there is data being captured by an individual agency, but there's also interagency transfer of this data, which I think cities historically have operated in silos in individual departments. But if you're laying a common horizontal infrastructure of technology, now all of a sudden a camera that might be deployed by the safety and security department, right? The police department, that feed could now be used to do traffic analysis, a lower version of that.
And let's understand how we got here, okay? It's not just about the people, it's about how the technology entered into cities. First of all, there's no money in cities, okay? So there's nobody willing to say we're going to invest $20 million in technology over the next, 3 years.
Right.
That's a huge, huge expense when police are wanting to be paid more in this and roads are bad and the like.
Right.
So what happened is when technology came online, those mandarins had their little groups. They put together some technology. This guy put some technology together. This guy kind of said, I heard about this.
Right.
So suddenly you show up in the year 2010, and everybody's working in different systems. different ways to approach it.
Right.
And now you've got to kind of reweave this whole thing with some sort of major network change, and that takes a lot of not invented here notion kind of moving off. And I think it's we weren't out in front of it, I think, in the city side like business, when you kind of decide, all right, we've got to make an enterprise change. This is a major move for this this company, and everybody kind of gets on with it over a couple of years, and you get on the other side.
Which goes back to your point about Burning Man, right? We joke, but it's a brand new Greenfield City that gets created every year.
Right.
The advantage is there is no install base. So you can actually lay down a digital platform on top of a physical platform.
Right.
And you can create this coordination and all these things that you would have constrained with in legacy cities. Right. So that was
it raises this interesting question, you know, as we go from city to city, is those cities that are most able to kind of start from scratch in some major area, and those that can have to build on. We were at a forum the other day, and someone asked about Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Sao Paulo, Brazil is a real problem because it's a relatively, a highly poor city, one of the largest cities in the world, and it's very hard to imagine how you deliver, how you leapfrog, even with technology in a place like that. Dallas seems to me to have the benefit. My family's half from Dallas, spread out, not a lot of density except maybe downtown. So is that an opportunity that many other cities don't have?
Because of space, or because it's a little bit because of age. Dallas is a very young city when you think about it, okay? And 155 years old or something. And so, and really, Dallas didn't get going till about the 70s, and we kind of started growing. So I think we don't have, we're not as constrained as much as other folks have been. And the great news about technology is, if you're late, it's okay. Another bus is going to come by real quick, okay? Right. It's like buying the TV. It's like, oh, I got to buy that new TV.
Mayor, how far is your time horizon? When you said another bus is coming, but are you thinking about tomorrow, next month, 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
I am. Yeah. I am. I'm looking at immediate change in how fast we can do it. But I like systemic change, but I like little change. Mark Cuban, I brought him in at Pizza Hut one time because we were sponsoring. He says, whatever I can do. And he thought maybe he could give T-shirts away or something. And I said, well, you made a ton of money in the business, and we got to do it enterprise change. And so he sat there and watched all my enterprise people show him the new way to approach this.
Oh, interesting.
And so I said, what do you think, Mark? And he looked at me and he says, if I was them, I'd have shown you exactly the same thing. And I said, well, what about me? And he says, assume that that's not going to happen. Assume that's not going to work. Because you can't solve, you can't do a perfect solution. He was a believer in kind of the left turn strategy. Go as fast as you can, get to a red light, turn right, get upfield that way, kind of moving and jiving. And so when I look at things, I'm not looking to solve them 10, 15 years ago, in the future, like you do with concrete. Right. Once that concrete's there, it's going to be a long time. I want to make rapid change in the next 2 years, see what's happening, and then go beyond that.
I want to go to the audience in just a moment, but Arvind, I want to ask you, when we think about, again, the future city, this connected, sensors everywhere, doors and lights interacting with people wearing wearables, but there's a lot of infrastructure retrofitting all throughout the nation and probably the world that's just going to be game-changing. Can we afford it? Can the mayor afford it? Or how are we going to pay for, I think it's one of the tension points that almost never gets talked about with these technology changes coming ahead. When you live in Washington, D.C. and we're not paying for anything, how are we going to pay for all this?
I think for the longest time we've looked at the city as a customer, but there's a lot of new business models that are being established, especially with technology, right? You can look at Wi-Fi, for instance, that can be substituted by advertising. You're looking at lighting, which is converting today, and there's about 4 billion light nodes that are going to be converted to LED. And lighting is about 40% of the energy cost of a city, But if you move to LED,
Lighting is 40% of the energy cost, or 40% of the cost
so
of the city?
lighting for an energy bill in terms of a city. And if you move from traditional lighting to smart lighting with LEDs, that's a 60% cost saving. So a question is, that's something that's bankable. That's something which you can bring the financial community to. And then as you start building more business models which aren't just a cost saver, you can start creating revenue on top of it, data business models, et cetera. Now I think you can start bringing financial community to the mix. So it's no longer a small pot of dollars that you're looking at. You can actually start creating bankable projects which will accelerate the deployment of this technology.
Dallas, I looked at the budget for next year that we're starting on. We're putting $13 million in tech, okay, in IT. We probably should be 30, okay?
I was going to say 13 sounded like a small number to me.
It is. I'm not happy with that, to make that kind of leapfrog. So you have to eat this elephant one piece at a time. The way we did it is we leveraged all of our bricks and mortar institutions, our rec centers, our libraries, and say, all right, let's start with those little planets in our universe. Wire those, use those, and then we start to kind of creep in that way. But you can't, you're going to have to look at this. Well, the same thing for streets and infrastructure.
Right.
Every city's got the same issue. You just can't go lay down whole new groups of streets.
I could keep talking to you guys for hours, but let me bring all of you into the conversation. Who would like to take the first stab here, right here in the front? I'm going to bring you a mic. This is Casey, everyone, and she's going to do a lot of running this afternoon.
Standing. Hi, my name is Clara Brenner. I'm the co-founder of Tummel, which is an urban ventures accelerator based here in San Francisco. And my question is about types of innovation. You guys have talked a lot about technological innovation, but I'm wondering about financial innovation. There's been a lot of discussion in anticipation of all the events this week about social impact bonds, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are and if you as a city have considered implementing any.
We have, in a couple of places. We haven't figured out the revenue side of it the way it needs to be figured out. You've got to convince a city or a county or an institution that somehow the cost is going to go down when you outsource and you fund a project like that. So the P&L on the other side or the ROI on the other side makes some sense. And so we just have done a couple of them right now. A lot around the criminal justice system and what leads people down that path. And boy, when you look at the dominoes that fall, the logic's there, but can you prove it up? And so politicians are not quite as easy to jump in. That's my thoughts.
Have you done anything in this area, Arvind?
Social impact bonds less so, but we've been working in Europe and other markets where you've got European funds, European investment banks, and others. In Asia, you're seeing a lot of infrastructure funds that are actually putting money to really drive this, because they look at traditional infrastructure and they think, well, you can't really measure it as much. Is it as efficient? So if I'm a financier and I want to put money down, can I do it more efficiently? Can I save money? And can I generate new revenue streams out of it? So we've seen some interesting models around
I can direct you to a new paper that just came out by two economists, one a Democrat named Jared Bernstein, who worked in the White House recently, and the other Kevin Hassett, who was an advisor to McCain, wrote a crazy book about the Dow going to 36,000. But a very interesting paper on new vehicles for social impact arenas. So it's at a website of the Economic Innovation Group. I just happened to have looked at it yesterday. So that's out there. Other questions, comments? I saw you scratch your ear. Yes, right here.
Hi, Tamara Holden-Gordon. I work for the County of Alameda. My question is for Arvind. You mentioned monetizing data. Our data, by definition, is public domain. How do you plan to monetize?
Sure. And who do you work for again?
County of Alameda.
County of Alameda. So
Right.
they're monetizing data.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple data models already. So if you look at transport and traffic information in cities, you've got apps like Waze and Move It, which is taking public information, but it's actually creating value to citizens, and there's a monetization model beyond it. Do they own that data? I mean, at the end of the day, they're facilitating, and citizens are actually contributing. Now, if it's citizen data, I think it has to be a combination of, the cities have to share and citizens have to opt in. And, there's models around that, but, it's not about private companies taking that data on their own. I think we're going through that balance between, and a lot of it's what happens in the US and what's happening in Europe. There's differences there. But I think you're going to see citizens drive certain data models through apps. You're going to see cities capture data, and it's up to cities to work with the citizens on what they share.
I think this is one of the most interesting things that will happen with technology, and that is the connectivity of opinions of citizens to government.
Right.
Because right now, the model had been somebody comes up with an idea. Maybe if you're large enough and you've got enough money, you do a poll, okay, and you do town hall meetings, and people can stand up and scream about their opinions and say, "Man, they're really passionate around that." But the connectivity of giving citizens real input in decisions that are made real time will change things, I think, markedly. I think it helps on transparency. I think the whole question of getting action will drive accountability in a huge way. And no one's really mastered that yet, how you make that happen.
To build off her question for a minute, isn't the fact that data is basically a blob, and you're getting this blob of stuff that's coming in, and that at some point people are going to be able to inform you as the chief executive of the city of things that you didn't see. You're going to have a Keanu Reeves looking at the matrix to see things people didn't see, or organize the data, be able to use it or create on-ramps that don't exist today. And so that's innovation that's above and beyond the data. So isn't that...
Yeah,
so
I think
what
I
do you
think
need
neighborhoods,
to do to get...
neighborhoods especially,
Right.
okay? Remember, every city is just a group of neighborhoods. And if neighborhoods can paint a picture for themselves,
Right,
and for the representatives of what's happening there, not just crime stats, but code issues, issues of transient people. You're talking about the whole blight issue.
Right.
There are about 3 or 4 things that cause that. And if they can start to gather that, put a picture out for themselves and say, neighborhood, this is what's happening, let's go to here, the leaders will jump on board, and I think technology will do that.
Or even a simple example like noise and environment sensors, right?
That's a great idea.
Right, you can deploy these in cities. I heard an example yesterday where a Tenderloin's very noisy, but the city didn't put any sensors down, so there was a bunch of people that actually went and designed this. I think you were there yesterday when they were doing this, and by actually informing citizens and retailers, you can start enforcing noise limits. The other example that we discussed was what happened in Chicago, right? They've gone through the 2 bad storms, and there was a perception that Mayor Rahm Emanuel's street was the first one that got plowed every time there was a big snowstorm. So the most popular app that they have is one which actually tracks where the snowplows are. And they actually found that the mayor's street was not the first one that was plowed.
That's the biggest mistake any mayor can make. I know that. That and potholes.
Right.
Okay?
So we've got to wrap up now. But Mayor, let me give you the final word. You made a very interesting comment. I found it very honest and candid that you felt that best and promising practices aren't shared very well between you practitioners. You're here, I assume, for the Conference of Mayors and Chamber of Commerce Presidents. Is that just kind of a feel-good, pat each other on the back kind of forum, or does any real work happen there? What would you do show and tell about Dallas and say, here's something I'd like to show others that we've done so well at?
Well, for us, it's around education. I mean, we haven't made huge progress, but we're doing things from an education standpoint. The Bush Institute is focused on best practices in education, and so we use that to put together a city report card about who's doing what's best in education.
And you don't have anything at the Chamber and Mayor's Conference like that where people are able to kind of create a brokerage of good ideas?
We hadn't up to this point.
Somebody should tweet that. That's what they should do tomorrow.
Exactly. I will say, let me have one other thought here, and that is to the tech people themselves, okay? What I am concerned about is a lot of products are being sold and not enough strategy. Okay? I just, the folks I talk to, man, they say, well, yeah, of course we do strategy. But please buy this, okay? Because that's their business model. And we've got to attack this much more from a strategic standpoint.
Ladies and gentlemen, Arvind Satyam of Cisco, Mayor Mike Rawlings, Mayor of Dallas, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.